Wednesday, June the 16th. We have the call of the roll. Mr. Auditor.
Conley,
Present.
Patterson,
Here.
Schweitzer,
Here.
Mr. Marvel,
Here.
Mr. Witt.
Present. Our two other board members are out of town and on vacation. Are there any additions or revisions to today's agenda? Hearing none, have all the board members had the opportunity to review last month's minutes?
I move we accept the minutes as presented.
Second.
Been a motion made and seconded to approve the minutes of last meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So moved. Item number 5 under the agenda is Special Order of Business 5.1, a discussion of the CIB operating budget process. Mr. Bramble, or Bosman?
Actually, thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, we had just a circle up on this just now, so I'll convey the discussion that just happened by those of your consultants and the chair of the Finance Committee about the presentation of the budget. So we walked through some statutes this morning, which are just a bit conflicting between the food and beverage tax law, the CIB law, and some State Board of Accounts rulings. We have confirmed with the State Board of Accounts that, and as you met last month, Doug Kowalski, new attorney with our firm, came from the State Board of Accounts as the chief of staff and general counsel there. So he has confirmed, and we have it in writing actually, that the CIB will be considered I got to almost look at the thing again, beneficial component unit of the county. That means you're part of the county, but you're also separate from the county. You will be adopting a budget separately from the county, but it must be submitted to the county council for review, approval, or rejection. And that process has to be, that submittal has to occur by September 1. So the calendar of events that I have that I'm going to walk through when you get to legal matters and the manual that's in front of you said that a budget presentation would be made this month and approved next month. It will really be made next month and approved the following month. Your management company, Spectra, will be an integral part of that. Dave Anderson is here this morning, and he and Jim, Jason Semler with Baker Tilly, and select members of the board, not enough to have a quorum, or of either a committee or the board itself will work together to put that draft budget in a form that is satisfactory to all, and then present it to the board at your July meeting. So you have a little while to think about it. I mean, if you're ready to pull the plug in July, that may be a little early, but you'll have through your August meeting to ultimately make the approval of that and send it to the county council. With that, Mr. Bramble may have some additional thoughts.
I meant to mention in the meeting we had, but the Department of Local Government Finance has a representative that serves this area, and generally during the summer, she'll take appointments and meet with the various units of government and assist them, review what they have on paper for our budget and answer any questions you have. And
So I guess I would just warn the board, as a new entity for the first time going through a budget, I think you're going to get some conflicting opinions. We've already gotten 2 conflicting opinions from the State Board of Accounts about your role. One, that you're entirely separate, a discrete unit from the county, and a second one that says you're a beneficial unit of the county. So we got the second one in writing, and we will continue to work with you and with Baker Tilly and your other consultants to go through this budget process the first time, and then get yourselves on track for the future.
Do we have a member of the council that'll be on that so that they can convey, for instance, the budget chair lady or woman?
Wouldn't have any problem with that at all. That makes some sense.
Vicki? Are you available to do that, or does the president have to make the appointment for our board?
So just so you know, this is not an official committee, and I don't want you to make an official committee, because then it becomes a whole different
Yeah. Yes.
animal. So this is just kind of an ad hoc group that is going to get together and work through it. Most of them consultants, actually, so it should have a board member there, so you know what's going on. And I have no problem with somebody from the council, if that's your desire.
Who's on the budget committee?
Vicky Wigger, it was Mr. Moore.
Oh,
Oh, yeah. It's Steve, myself, and Dave. And the chairman.
you want to serve on it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mr. Schweitzer is the chairman of that committee.
Actually, I'd like for you not to do that, Mr. Chairman, because if you appoint an official committee, then we have to have open door notices, et cetera. This is just a group, mostly of your consultants, that are going to get together, and
Okay,
if you've got a representative of the board that you want to appoint to be there, that'd be great.
okay.
Sorry to cut the tomatoes so thin, but this is just a working group.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions? Item 6 is old business. 6.1, an update on the construction progress with Brian Koistra of Garmong Construction Services. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning, John. Good morning, Board. Good to be with you today. Good to provide you with an update on progress, and I think you'll find there's been much of it. We'll start with the budget. So the current GMP is $26,392,808. That is unchanged from last month, but I will tell you there is a change order pending. That is change order number 10 in the amount of $142,301. It includes a number of different things that have been modified over the last month or two, the largest of which is an added parking garage storage room, which accounts for about half of that cost. A number of other changes, some of them, very minor, but have taken place over the last month or so. So that change order, it's been approved. We're waiting on final signatures to officially account for that. Schedule, project is on schedule, by all measures ahead of schedule. We're happy about that. Substantial completion date remains at April 27th of '22, but we're forecasting a completion date at least a month or two ahead of that. Recent progress. So as you drive by, a lot of work is taking place on the exterior of the building. The exterior masonry is done on 3 sides. Really just maybe 2 or 3 days left of limestone work on the front of the building, for which we're expecting the last delivery of that material, hopefully today. That'll allow that to finish up. The EFIS, or the plaster work, is complete on the west elevation. They've now moved to the south elevation along Wabash Avenue. I'll show you a picture of that here in a second. The storefront framing, or window framing, is installed along Wabash. Glass gets delivered today, which really excites me. It's funny, what excites you in your line of work, but glass delivery is one of those things. So I'm excited to see that go in. The operable panel partitions, so the movable walls that separate the ballroom, all that track work overhead is complete. The monumental stair, I've got a picture of that I'll show you. That is installed. Bulkhead framing and drywall installation is progressing. So in the ballroom, there's just a series of bulkheads or drywall that hang down from the ceiling that separates the ceiling area and kind of creates an interesting look. A lot of that work is taking place. And then the mechanical, electrical rough-ins continue. On the parking garage, a major milestone has occurred. The concrete topping slabs are now being poured. We're doing a pour today that will complete the rooftop level, then we'll move down to the 4th floor. It's taken us about a week to do each level. So the rooftop is level 5. We've got 4, 3, 2, and 1 yet to take place. Backfill for the slab on grade, so the first level of the garage, that dirt is being installed and compacted currently. And then work on the precast panels, touch-up work to fix blemishes and other imperfections is taking place as well. Looking ahead to next month, the EIFS work will continue. It'll come down Wabash Avenue, and then we'll turn to the east elevation between the Convention Center and the Copper Bar. As I mentioned, limestone veneer, hopefully that will be complete later this week. The elevator, Kone Elevator is the installer. They showed up on site this week along with all their materials to begin installation of the elevator. I mentioned the glass. That'll start going in today along Wabash. The window framing is now taking place on the east and north elevations. Drywall hanging, as we begin to get the building enclosed. We've started hanging drywall in the core of the building, but as we get the exterior sealed up, that work will start making its way closer to the perimeter. Mechanical, electrical rough-ins continue, and we are expecting to start exterior hardscape and the Hilton Garden Inn connector in the month of July. So we'll start hardscape along Wabash Avenue, curbs, sidewalks. We've got some underground storm drainage lines to put in, and then the connector that runs along Wabash Avenue to the Hilton Garden Inn. That work will start in July as well. On the parking garage, concrete slabs will continue, and then next month, elevator work will begin on the garage, on the 2 elevators over there. Now for picture time. So here's a shot from the webcam. You can see here, this is the EIFS work, complete along this side. They're turning the corner, working their way down. That takes place all along there. The limestone work I mentioned. The last remaining piece goes here, there. That material is scheduled to arrive, I think today or tomorrow. The windows I mentioned, those will all be installed on Wabash. I'm trying to think of some other things to point out. That's really the bulk of activity you can see from the webcam. This is a photo I took yesterday from the roof, or the upper level of the parking garage, looking down on the, would be the east elevation of the parking garage. You can see the EIFS work that's taken place on Wabash and Turner. This section becomes EIFS. Window frames are installed here. Deck installed up above. This is the bulkhead framing. So this is a shot of the ballroom. So this is looking up at the ceiling, and all of these are what I refer to as bulkheads. Break that huge space, that huge ceiling, into smaller sections, and then within each one of these squares will be 4x4 ceiling tiles. So really going to be a neat looking space, and a lot of work kind of taking place overhead right now, but I think you'll see the fruits of our labor when it's complete. This is a shot of the west elevation, so between the Convention Center and the Hilton Garden Inn. That's the EIFS system. These are the window frames along Wabash Avenue. That's where the glass will begin installation this week. This is a shot inside. So the picture on the left is taken from the 2nd floor, kind of looking down to the 1st floor. You can see drywall has been hung there, and then the photo on the right is the monumental stair that is located kind of in the spine of the building, and we'll take you up to the second floor. This is a photo of the fourth floor of the parking garage. So we're currently pouring on the fifth floor. Ahead of that, they're laying reinforcing steel. This is epoxy coated. That's the green color. They're laying that in preparation for concrete to be poured next week on that level. This is a shot of the rooftop level of the parking garage. They just had completed a pour yesterday. You can see that here. And with that, be happy to answer any questions.
Brian, what's the connector look like when that's finished? Is it glass, limestone? Is it ephes?
Mostly glass. So I believe the connector is 8 foot wide. It ties into the exterior of the Hilton Garden Inn, has a single slope roof that slopes towards what would be Wabash Avenue, and then is largely glass, storefront aluminum framing with glass infill.
And you're going to take out a section of the Hilton Garden Inn's glass?
Yeah, so if you can envision the exterior of the Hilton Garden Inn, there's a series of windows that run kind of along their restaurant area. Part of our work is to take those windows out and install the connector, and then those windows become openings that just kind of create an openness out to the connector. So just kind of becomes one area with these openings to kind of separate the connector from the restaurant area.
Do I have any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And by the way, Brian has offered to take Tennille and Councilwoman Wager, and if any of the board members want to go back and see the actual progress in person, he's going to leave right after the meeting. You want to do that? Thank you, Brian. All right, item 6.2, an update on the convention center management, Spectra venue management. Good morning, Tennille.
Good morning. How are you?
All right, thank you.
I'm in town now permanently. I have an office at the Garmung office, so I moved in there on Wednesday. So I'm very appreciative to be right across the street. Makes it really nice and convenient. Recent progress, we recently posted the Director of Operations position, so I'm in the process of going through candidates. I've got phone interviews set up for next week, so we'll start going through those, and soon that will be our next hire. I've been meeting with several local community members. I've had a lot of folks that have reached out to me over the course of the past couple months and weeks, and I've been setting up appointments to meet with those folks in the community to just find out more about, how they're vested in the community and what has been going on downtown businesses. And I'll continue to meet with folks and move forward with, just really trying to understand everyone in the involvement, the business community, and what's needed and what expectations are amongst those. I'm currently working on a competitive analysis of the market, local and regional. So I've been looking at some of the other local venues that are here and looking at regional venues to compare services and pricing to make sure that the facility here will be in line. I'll also be going regionally to look at some of the other regional venues as well in the coming weeks and meet personally with some of those venues. Also in the process of preparing preliminary rates, estimated pricing for our services so that we can start putting together proposals for groups. Working on our sales and marketing plan, and we've been working with RJL on the logo and potential new website for the facility. Any questions?
Do I have any questions? Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
All right, item 6.3 is an update on the RFP process with the Nations Group. Good morning, Todd.
Good morning, Mr. President, members of the board. Nations Group has worked with our operator, Spectra, to solicit and receive proposals for furniture for the convention center, and we've received 3 proposals and forwarded the recommendation to you today for commercial office environments. We've also solicited and received parking equipment proposals, and after much vetting back and forth, it's kind of parking equipment's a little bit like buying a car. There's a lot of bells and whistles. You want to make sure you get the right one for your needs, so we've able to forward that here earlier this week, and we propose signature control systems for that as well. We have on that some advanced technology that has some remote capability. So when the parking deck is being used, when the convention center is not, there's a remote capability for someone to be able to assist someone with an issue or help them if at the deck getting in or out as needed after hours. So that's what we offer for you guys today.
There was quite a bit of difference between all 3 proposals, and what you're saying is you sat down and went through every proposal for the bells and whistles, making sure they were all basically the same.
Correct, yes. Several times there was a lot of different information. Each company, each system has their own peculiarities, and we wanted to make sure we didn't have if there was a base system, someone provided a base system, and that company also provided a more advanced system, and the other company we proposed, Signature, has a more advanced system with the remote capability and the credit card payment items that we thought would be best interest for the board and for the event. So it did take quite a bit of effort to go through each item and talk to the vendors about each system and how they operate.
The Nations Group has been aware from the very get-go about the board's intentions to, if we can do it local, hire it local, that's what we should do. In this particular case, one of the local bidders was so much higher than the other 2 on the same equipment that, and they refused to negotiate. They were where they were at. So that's why we went to an Indianapolis company, because we get the same product over there for $40,000.
That's correct, and that's for the furniture, and we did solicit the local company did respond to the solicitation, and we took their items that they only could quote a certain amount of items. We took the items they quoted, compared an apples to apples to the other 2, and they were significantly more. You know, the buying power of these larger, big city companies, it's tough to beat in something of this size and scope. We did a thorough analysis, and they were not as successful for pricing. They did have comparable quality, though.
I have a question. You mentioned that the parking garage equipment is all within what was budgeted?
Yes, it
Even
is.
though for the pricing?
Yes, we're within budget on the parking equipment.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
6.4 under old business is an update on the project budget with Jason Simler of Baker Tilly. Morning, Jason.
Morning. I sent out a couple of days ago an updated monthly budget to cash flow estimate. I'm just going to go through that quickly. If no one has that copy of that, I have extras.
It's actually item 8 in the manual that we handed out. I put Jason's most recent items in
Again,
there.
this is just an update of what I presented last month. These are expenses that were approved through May 19. But the overall construction budget has not changed. It's still the $34,891,000. You can see there again from our schedule, we've kind of broken the cost out between design and professional fees, the hard construction costs, and furniture fixtures and the contingency. You can see for the design and professional fees, budgeted $4.5 million as of May 19th. You had spent 3.7, leaving over $800,000 remaining in the budget. Hard construction cost, again, as mentioned earlier, that has not changed as of today. Total budget was 28.3 million, spent 14.1, leaves a little over 14.2 million remaining to be spent according to the budget. And then your furniture and fixtures, again, just really, I think the first month we've had a really substantial amount of expenses for the equipment, the $242,000 as you see there. Again, of the $1.4 million budget, still 1.2 million, so we'll see that going down here as we get closer to the facility being completed. But overall, you get the contingency is still $556,000 of contingency there. It's allowed. And so again, overall budget of 34.8 million, spend about 18 million, leaving 16.8 million remaining.
I've asked the Nations Group to pass it along that our design should be where it's at. And that's a large cost, designing when we make changes. So they've been instructed that if there are any further design costs there, to get a hold of the board or me, and then I'll get with the budget committee and the rest of the board to make a decision whether we want to make that change or not.
May I add something, Mr. President? So there may still be some, and Brian Koister would be the one to nod or say no. I mean, you practice there, each one. There may still be some items that shop drawings or something has to be turned in for approval. Is that true, Brian, or are we beyond all of that?
So your question is in
Design
regards
costs.
to design costs?
Yeah.
I would tell you the submittal process is 99% complete. There's still, RFIs and question and answer processes that still take place, but and this is probably a better question for Nations Group, but I would assume that construction administration component of your design firm's contract is set, and that is, if I ask them a question, it doesn't result in, an additional bill. I think their construction administration piece is probably a fixed amount that takes place over the course of the job, but I'm speculating, so I'll pass the baton.
Yeah, I can address that. Yeah, we're under contract with CSO for their construction administration costs or monthly site visits, RFIs, answer our questions. So that is already included in the project, and it should remain the same. And there should not be any additional add to their contract. And then as we get a little closer to the end, we'll be able to, it's set what their contract is now, and those remaining funds, barring anything unforeseen, which we don't see anything at this point, should be able to be turned back into the CIB.
So are those monthlies paid out of the design fee budget?
Which is their contract, yes.
So I guess the point I'm trying to make for the board is whether there will be additional appropriate charges to the design fee category.
No, not at.
So their
They're already
administrative
contracted,
expenses are under construction?
Yes.
Under
They're under
construction.
design. Their contract is in design. Their construction administration is part of their design contract.
Okay,
And
so
they're-
you said there were monthly fees for their administration?
Monthly charges. It's in their contract. It's already
I
set.
know, I
Okay,
understand that,
okay.
but so what I think the board's impression is that all charges, all appropriate charges to the design category are completed. So my question to clarify is whether their contract administration will come out of the monthly charges will come out of the $1,950,000 category. I just want to clarify because there's some question about this.
Yes, it will come out of that.
Okay, so there will be additional charges coming out of that design fee category for the monthly administration expenses for CSO.
Correct. Up to the limit of their contract, which is below the 1.9. Yes. Okay.
Got it.
I know, there's two
So
separate
so
things.
I'm just trying to clarify that I think John's impression is, the president's impression is that there's $302,000 there that is free and available. That's not the case, correct?
Correct.
That will all be spent?
No. Up to the limit of their contract currently, which I can get that figure for you.
My point is that's just not available funds, and I know that was kind of intimated in a conversation that we had earlier in the week. There will be additional charges out of there that aren't necessarily design. They're contract administration or construction administration fees that CSO's contract provides for. And I can confirm that also, what's remaining on their contract. But-
Yeah, it's up to the limit of their contract, and then whatever's above that to the 1.9 is currently available.
Yeah, I guess we'd like to know how much is going to be in the pot at the conclusion of the project.
Okay.
If there's no other design done, I understand about administrative costs. Tell us what those are, so we'll know how much is going to be left of the $302,000.
I can do that later
Todd, why don't
today.
you do that, and I'll do it also
Okay, yeah.
from their contract, and then we'll compare our figures.
Okay, we'll do that
Okay,
today.
so then the board knows
A
what's
good
available.
example of this is originally in the plans, we were going to have a hotel behind the convention center. Will there be a design cost in redoing that area behind the convention center that will come from maybe that line item
That's,
on the north side? Because originally that was going to be a hotel / kind of a sidewalk, green area. Yeah,
that's already been an ad service to their contract, so the current contract amount includes that.
okay.
And we'll get you that current contract amount. Brian and I will get that to you so you can see the difference between that and the 1.9 that's been budgeted. You have a clear number to look at.
Brian, is that one of the $73,000 change orders that?
Say that again, John.
Someplace.
The change in the portico share, he's asking if that's part of the 142,
You had
whatever.
mentioned a change order for $72,000. Is that a part of any of that?
Yeah, so the change order I talked about was change order 10, I think it was $142,000. All of those had a design component to them, right? Because that's really the way the process works. Whether it's Nations Group or whomever, say, hey, we would like to change this. They call CSO, they're the architect. They say, hey, we would like to make this change. They put together a sketch or some information. It gets sent to us, Garmong. We price it up. We send it back. They give it to them. They review it, approve it, or reject it, and then we get our direction. So I don't want to speak for Todd, but I think anytime there's a change, CSO is either saying, okay, it's inconsequential enough that we're not going to charge you for it, or this is a major change, it's going to require additional services, and here's our cost, review it, approve it, or deny it, and then it probably moves on. And, I'm not really involved in how that sausage is made, but I assume that's the way it goes. So to answer your question, I think all of the changes, once they get to me, those design costs are resolved, and I would assume Todd accounts for those, or Nations Group accounts for those in whatever numbers they give to the board.
Brian, those change orders, though, are outside of the fixed construction cost of the 26.3.
That is correct. Yeah. So anytime they present a change and it is outside of our current design, we say, time out, this is going to cost more, and then we go through the process of pricing it up, and, the owner's rep or the board gets to decide whether they want to, move forward with it or not.
So, and the point I'm trying to make for the board is some of those design changes, which will continue to occur, I'm presuming, maybe the majority of them are behind, but there may be something.
I hope.
Yeah. It may be part of CSO's, depending on what it is and how much it takes, may be part of CSO's current contract, or it may not and be an added service. So I just don't want the board to look at $302,000. It would seem that design should have been done a long time ago because we're constructing. But there's ongoing administration and some additional possible changes that may will come out of this fee. So don't move 302 to construction budget yet. But we'll try to come up with a figure as to what what is anticipated, and then you want to save a little because there may be something unanticipated still here to
Correct,
the
right.
end.
Well, all their design changes are current when their contract, and we'll get the contract, reconcile that with the budget, and show you what's currently remaining, pending no more design changes, which we don't anticipate any large design changes from here on out. It's all,
If you look on that sheet I give you, I give them 18 questions. And majority of them said, what is your anticipated cost compared to the budget that you give us for each one of those items? So I understand now about the 302. It won't be that. Another question I have, though, is on the design of the museum. Does that all come out of the 1.5 that we have budgeted for the museum?
that's correct. The design, the consultant fees, and the construction is all in that budget of the 1.5.
So it has nothing to do with this 302.
Correct. It's part of the construction budget.
Okay. We all on board with that, understand it?
Yeah, it was great.
Brian?
I haven't counted, but I think this is my 100th public construction project, and it's one of the top 6 most expensive. So what I've learned in that time is the Gilda Radner rule, it's always something. So I would remain flexible and conservative, and I'm real pleased with where the project is personally right now. I can't believe Brian just said it might be done early. Don't know when I've heard that. So it's great.
We try to tell him to not say those things, but
All right, thank you. 6.5 is an update on the memorabilia cataloging with Shelley King, who is on vacation this week, and so we'll put that off till next month. 6.6, update on legal matters with Brian Bosma of Kroger, Gardis, and Regas.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple of items. First of all, we have the 2 resolutions in new business, 2021-08, which selects an RFP for offeror for the furniture and furnishings. And then 2021-09 is just a little different. When you adopted several months ago 2021-06, Resolution 2021-06, because we received no responses under this RFP statute to our request for proposals for garage equipment. So 2021-06 allowed Nations Group to solicit negotiated quotes with entities, and then 2021-09 authorizes a special purchase. So there's a statute under the special purchasing statute that says if you go through one of the other required acquisition processes and you get no responses, whether it's bidding or RFP or whatever, then you can just negotiate. So when we get to that, 2021-09 authorizes the negotiated quote that was recommended by Nations Group and Spectra. So before you, I probably should have done this at the start, before you is the long-awaited board packet that we've been working on for a while. It was difficult to get it done when we worked together. Now that we are, I made it a priority. So I'm just going to run through it because I think this is something that hopefully will help you be more organized. Not that you aren't, you're all very organized, but hopefully it will keep us all more organized for what's ahead. So if you turn just to the first page, table of contents, we have the schedule of 2021 meetings with special agenda items. We'll, for the December meeting, we'll prepare the 2022 one to circulate to you so you can get those on your calendar and then realize what special agenda items might be there. Category 2 is a list of the CIB members by whom they were appointed and their term, along with the officers that were selected in January. Subdivision 3 is the Capital Improvement Board committees and memberships. 4 is a list of CIB advisors and consultants. Now, I already see an omission with Steve Bauer's semi-retirement and Todd stepping into that role. I'll sub Todd in. I may leave Steve there still. because he's still hanging around, and I call his cell phone still every once in a while. But I'll put Todd's information there. You will note that I have cell phones for most of your critical folks, for Jason and Baker Tilly, myself, and my partner, Ted, the owner's representative, the construction manager, the convention center operator now includes Dave and Tennille, and I still have Katie on there as well. Your CSO contacts, Jim Bramble, just in case you don't know how to get a hold of him. Your Larry Bird Museum consultants, your communication consultants, Shelley Keene, the Memorabilia consultant, and then, of course, Tammy York Allen, who we lean on too much. So those are all handy for you. I've said it before, but to some of the new members, I am literally available with the exception of about 5 hours at night when you need me. So if you have a question that can't wait until the morning, feel free to call my cell. To my wife's chagrin, it's almost always on. Section 5. These are reference documents that may come in handy for you at some point. The multi-party agreement between the Visitors Bureau, the county, the city, and the Redevelopment Commission. I'm sorry, that one didn't include the Redevelopment Commission, but the other three participants here by which the ordinance was adopted. There's both the original 2016 and the amended ordinance 2018, number 5, which is in front of those. Your restated bylaws, which were adopted in 2018. I've included the statutory provisions that apply to the Capital Improvement Board. I'm always happy to interpret those for you, but occasionally somebody may want to look to see what the law says. It's right there. I included here the remote meeting policy that you adopted at your last meeting in case you should have a question about that. It's blank for the moment, but I put a subdivision F here for your purchasing policy. We are working on a purchasing policy. We'll work with Spectra on that because it will both clarify the Capital Improvement Board's purchasing procedures, but also will clarify Spectra's. Some of these things are addressed in their contract, but we want to be sure that we're all on the same board, on the same page. So before we submit something to you, hopefully at the next meeting, might be August, we'll be sure that Dave Anderson and his team have reviewed it and we're all on the same page. And we're good with the Department of Local Government Finance and State Board of Accounts as well. Item number 6 is agenda of meetings. Now, if you look, and if item number 6 starts in yours with January 15, 2020, do this. That should not be there because it's in the back. They're in reverse order. So today's agenda should be the very first item, June 16. And you can easily, if you want to use this as a reference, you could easily just add your new agenda when we mail it out to the front here. I've got all the agenda back to 2020, through 2020, in case you want to see what the board did during those meetings. Item number, yes, Mr. President.
Book?
I'm sorry?
Do you have a book for me?
I gave you one already, didn't I?
No, he didn't go to that meeting that we sat in on.
I wondered why I had an extra one.
Thank you, sir.
Sorry. You had so many books sitting in front of you, John, I thought you had it. And then I have 2 for the 2 absent members also. Item number 7 is the interlocal agreement for joint financing of the convention center. The important part of that is the exhibits, which indicates each of the participants, including the redevelopment commission's contribution. I inserted, and you can as well, each month, the current convention center construction budget and cash flow. When Jason sends those out, you can print them off, 3-hole punch them, stick them right in there if that's what you would like to do. This month's is there. I did not put prior months, but happy to circulate those. And then I started thinking about putting the resolutions that have been adopted by the board through 2018 in here. It would have been one of these giant binders instead. So I put an index of the resolutions, and I will update that, maybe not every month, but every couple of months to show dating back to 2018 and your adopted bylaws resolution. Any of those, I've got all of those, and as does the auditor. So in the event you want to see any of those at some point, just shoot me an email and I'll send it back to you. And we'll update this every once in a while. So hopefully this is a good reference for you for the future, and I'll I'll try to keep you organized as well, and the amount of documentation has become a bit overwhelming, but hopefully this will get us on the right page, and I'm happy to answer any questions about that. And then I have one other matter.
Any questions?
The only other item pending legal matter is still cleaning up some of our, now that we're going to be constructing the connector and finalizing things, there's still some easement issues to be addressed with the copper bar, with HGI, and with the state office building. So those will, now that there's a breath here on a couple of other items, we'll attend to those and see if we can't get everyone on the same page so that all that is satisfied and in the proper place when opening occurs. And I'm going to go on the little tour. Maybe Brian and I can talk about a couple of the needs in that regard and anticipated access at the site. So with that, happy to answer any other questions.
No questions? Thank you, Brian. Item number 7 is new business. 7.1, the resolution Brian was just talking about, 2021-08, approving the response to furniture and furnishings RFP.
Thank you, Mr. President. Happy to answer any questions. I already kind of explained it. The one thing that I don't have with me that I will forward is anytime you make an RFP request, you have to insert in the records of the CIB for audit purposes a register of proposals. We don't have to do that for the equipment because there were no responses, but I'll submit this to John for signature and then get it to the auditor for the CIB's permanent records. Happy to answer any questions about the resolution.
Questions? Do we need a motion?
Yes, please.
I'll make a motion to approve 2021-08.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Mr. Auditor, will you call the roll, please?
Ms. Conley,
Aye.
Patterson,
Aye.
Mr. Schweitzer,
Aye.
Mr. Marvel,
Aye.
Mr. Witt.
The motion passes unanimously. Resolution 2021-09, selecting a vendor for special purpose or purchase of operating equipment for the convention center parking garage.
Happy to answer any questions.
It explained, but any questions? Chair's open for approval.
I'll make a motion for the resolution 2021-09.
Second.
Purchase.
Motion's been made by Dave Patterson, seconded by Chris Schweitzer to approve the resolution 2021-09. Mr. Bramble, call the roll.
Ms. Conley,
Aye.
Mr. Patterson,
Aye.
Mr. Schweitzer,
Aye.
Mr. Marvel,
Aye.
Mr. Witt.
Passes unanimously. Thank you. Item number 8, other business. 8.1 is questions and comments from CIB members. Any comments, Steve? Okay. I do have one, and it goes back to last year, early last year, about the president and the vice president and the executive committee, basically a resolution that we could approve without the board being there. Is that basically what I'm talking about here?
It depends on the item, but generally, yes, the executive committee is empowered to deal with business in between meetings of the board so that you don't have to call a special board meeting. Depending on what it is, Mr. President, we may submit a ratification resolution, but yes.
So what I'm trying to say is I'd like to get back to where we had started several years ago, is with the chair of each committee being involved with the decision, if there is an issue that comes up. Okay? I'm not asking.
Well,
for a vote.
that's, with the exception of Mr. Schweitzer, that's the executive committee. So The executive committee is the chair, the mayor as vice chair, and Mr. Witt. Construction committee is the mayor, chair. Finance is Mr. Schweitzer as chair, and communications is also the mayor. So
much for that.
pull Chris in on your decision, and you've accomplished it.
Good. Okay.
Absolutely.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Our next regular meeting will be July the 21st, 2021. If there's nothing further, we're adjourned. Brian?
Get a resolution signed and then sent to you.
Brian, do you have time?
Okay.
Do you have time to?
Yeah.
That's okay.
If anybody wants to go on a tour,
As long as I get a scan. That's fine, yeah. Duplicating right now.
Hey, Brian, I'll call you next week. I have to be out at St. Mary's here in a little bit. I got roped into something. Yeah, John and I both, yeah, we had a.
I gotta be out there too. Hey.
Oh, are you?